There are several programs at Hodges University that have specialty accreditation, which presents particular challenges when you're creating a set of program learning outcomes and course learning outcomes. But it can also be a benefit in that it provides guidance for that set of outcomes, and specialty accreditation can help you attain a comprehensive set of outcomes. As long as your outcomes align to those accreditation standards, you can be confident that they comprehensively cover the curriculum of your program. So I'm going to take an example of an accrediting body called CACREP, which accredits master's programs in mental health counseling. And the Hodges Clinical Mental Health Counseling Program is accredited by this body. And the way many accreditation standards are laid out is that there will be a particular section that addresses the curriculum of the program and what they expect that curriculum to cover. And that is the case with CACREP. The way these are often organized is that there may be broad areas or domains under which there would be more specific content areas or skill areas that are addressed. Now, ideally, these standards would already be written in the language of student learning outcomes, but often that is not the case, so they require some translation into that language. And we're going to take this example where the first domain for CACREP is professional orientation and ethical practice. And then the components of that domain are listed beneath. And those components would lend themselves to course learning outcomes, where the larger domain would lend itself to a program learning outcome. And you want to really think about what is expressed in that domain. In this case, it's professional orientation and ethical practice. And the Clinical Mental Health Counseling Program has already done this. They've taken each of those domains and crafted learning outcome statements. So let's look at the first example. Students will evolve in ethical professional practice with a knowledge of relevant ethical codes and applicable law, which integrates personal morals and beliefs. Now that's a very heavy statement. There's a lot going on within that statement, but it does reflect where the program would like their students to be by completion of the program, that they will have the ability to evolve their practice knowing what the relevant ethical codes and the applicable laws are that are going to govern their practice, but also having a practice which integrates their own personal morals and beliefs. So the proof or the observation of achievement of that standard would be through the achievement of all the components of it that will be drafted at the course level. Because that domain is so broad, the program has come up with a second learning outcome to address it. And the second program level outcome is students will develop a strong counselor identity through exposure to professional rules, supervision and consultation, professional membership, and credentialing requirements. So once again, that program outcome is encompassing a lot, and observation of its achievement would have to be through the achievement of the subcomponents that make up that outcome. So the end goal is the strong counselor identity. The components of that identity are, or the achievement of that identity is through the exposure to the professional rules, through consultation and supervision, through knowledge of professional membership and credentialing requirements. So those components. So now we're going to take an example of how to create those course level outcomes. The example that we see here, subletter B, is one of those subcomponents of the overarching domain. And this particular standard refers to professional roles, functions, and relationships with other human service providers, including strategies for collaboration and communication. So you want to zero in on what are the key concepts of that statement, and in this case it would be collaboration and communication with other human service agencies. So we want our learning outcome statement, or statements in this case, to reflect that. And there might be two statements that we could come up with. Students will describe the process of forming an interagency network. So this requires students to think about what would the membership of that network be. How would those people come together in the first place? What would govern the nature of their collaboration and their interactions with each other? So you could even be more specific at the module level to bring students up to that course outcome. And then the second statement, students will explain their roles and ways of participating in an interagency network. This would require students to envision themselves actually doing this and describing how they would do it and how they would carry it out, with the end goal that they will, when they step into that professional role, they will have already thought about these things and be prepared. And we'll take a second example. Counselor roles and responsibilities as members of interdisciplinary emergency management response teams during different types of disaster or trauma events. So this is pretty specific. It would be a course level outcome. And the outcome statement is students will summarize the professional roles that they expect to play in various trauma-inducing scenarios. So again, this is asking students to envision themselves in that role and to think about various scenarios. So not just one type of event, but multiple types of events where they may need to behave differently according to the type of scenario. And they need to think about what they will do and what is appropriate to their profession. So again, they will be prepared to step into that role when they reach that point in their careers. So it's important to think about both the program and the course level. The program outcome is so broad and encompasses so much that you really need the course level outcomes to align to those specific elements that are addressed in the accreditation standard. But when the program and course outcomes are structured in such a way, it then lends itself to being able to provide the accrediting body with the evidence that students have achieved that learning. Not only that your curriculum covers it, but that you've aligned the activities in the curriculum to those outcome statements that align with the standards. You've assessed the degree to which students achieve those standards, so you are able to demonstrate that you're in full compliance with those accreditation standards.